StephenWh, with not such a lemon after all, not such a lemon after all, StephenWh.
Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. When asked about the significance of the French Revolution, the communist leader Zhou Enlai, the first premier of communist China, famously replied, "It is too soon to say." And I take his point because it's very, very difficult to isolate specific events or people in history and say, oh, that's where the course of history changed. However, there are undoubtedly a multitude of men and women, mostly unknown today, who had an impact on the formation of history. And I want to focus on two of these people tonight, James Lynn and Gilbert Blane, names that you probably wouldn't recognise. But they had a very significant effect on the formation and success of the British Empire. Now I want to take you back to the age of sail. When Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, he ushered in a period of about 300 years where merchant and naval ships plied the seas for the purposes of colonisation, trade, and of course war. And what do you think, during that period, was the biggest killer of sailors?
Scurvy.
Oh, I'll take suggestions from the floor.
They said already.
Scurvy.
Scurvy is the correct answer. Not warfare, not piracy, not shipwrecks, but scurvy. And that's a disease we now know is caused by vitamin C deficiency. Some of the statistics relating to scurvy are frankly astonishing, or to me anyway. When Vasco da Gama became the first person to sail from Europe to India in 1499, he lost 116 out of 170 crew to scurvy. Only 18 men out of a complement of 230 returned from Magellan's first circumnavigation in 1522, and the remainder were largely killed due to scurvy or malnutrition. This is the one that really frightened me. During the 7 Years' War in the mid-18th century, the Royal Navy enlisted 185,000 sailors, 7 Years' War, and lost 134,000 to disease, predominantly scurvy. And overall, between 1500 and 1800, over 2 million sailors died from scurvy. By the start of the 18th century, it was pretty clear that scurvy was something to do with diet, but nobody quite knew what that was. And of course, what that led to was a vast range of crackpot ideas being submitted to the Royal Society and the Royal Navy's rather charmingly named Sickness and Health Board. But none of them seemed to work, and there were just hundreds and hundreds of documents being passed forward. Until in 1747, James Lind, who was a naval surgeon working aboard HMS Salisbury, conducted a very simple clinical trial. And all he did was he took 12 sailors who were in the early stages of scurvy, split them into pairs, and he gave each pair a different treatment. And it was all stuff that was just lying around. So he gave one pair vinegar, one pair seawater, one pair cider, and as it so happens, he gave one pair lemons. And you can guess what happened next, because the pair that were given lemons made an absolutely amazing recovery. And the other 10 didn't. This was a very obvious remedy, but it took 50 years before it was implemented in the Royal Navy. And why was that? Well, there were three things. Firstly, the Royal Society, gatekeepers of all things medical in Britain, refused to acknowledge empirical research. that only accept things that were backed up by theory. And James Lind didn't have a theory, he just had something that worked. Unfortunately, he tried to cobble a theory together, which rather shot himself in the foot, really, and made him just another crackpot, if you like. Secondly, Lind himself recognised that it was very difficult to get a continuing supply of fresh lemons on board a ship, so he suggested using a condensate, basically a boiled down derivative of lemons that would be used as a kind of condensed juice. However, in the boiling process, all the vitamin C goes out the window, so when this was tried, it didn't work, thus sort of disproving his trial. And thirdly, it was left to the great Captain Cook himself to really muddy the waters, because when he went on his circumnavigation in 1768, he was trying out something else. He was trying a fantastic combination of sauerkraut and wort of malt, which is the liquid you get from the mashing process in brewing. Yummy. But if it works for scurvy, works for scurvy. Well, it didn't actually, but the voyage was scurvy-free, and that was because Captain Cook insisted on cleanliness and on continuing to take on fresh supplies whenever we could. So while it was purely accidental that there was no scurvy, everyone thought, wow, it's sauerkraut and malt wort, fabulous. So that really did make things difficult for the lemons. However, there was one man, Gilbert Blaine, who had kept track of all of Lind's research and the various treatises that he had continued to publish through the ages. And he happened to be, he was physician to Fleet, and then he was King's physician, so he held some prominence in the field. And he said to one of his mates one night, look, I know you're going on this voyage, why not try lemons for your crew? Well, his mate was Admiral Gardner, who happened to be leading the fleet on a voyage to India. And the entire fleet in 1793, after 19 weeks at sea, landed safely in Madras with no instance of scurvy whatsoever. So, in that instance, the evidence was fairly compelling. And fortunately, Blaine became chairman of the Sick and Health Board 2 years later and was able to use his position to persuade the Admiralty to sanction the use of lemon juice and make it much wider. In the next 20 years, the Admiralty went on to issue 1.6 million gallons of lemon juice to the Royal Navy and basically obliterated the entire problem. This was very timely because it happened just before the Napoleonic Wars, and now the British sailors could go for weeks, months at sea without putting into port. They could maintain naval blockades that actually went a long way to winning the Napoleonic Wars for Britain. And with France's demise as a major power, that left Britain clear to pursue its own imperial goals. Given the substantial level of French activity in Australia, then, we should perhaps thank Lind and Blaine that we can say good day rather than bonjour. Thank you.